Hi beautiful people, welcome back to another tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to be learning how to cut this beautiful dress you're seeing on the mannequin with a round neck with lace edge and the opening at the center front. And here is how I'll go about to cut out the fabric. I've got here 5 yards of lace fabrics, and then the first thing I want to do is to first cut the length, because for the front center front one we need a lace edge to face each other as a front. And then I'll go ahead now and cut out the length that I will be needing for the dress. And the first part we're cutting, like I said, is for the front. And then this is how I'll go back to do it. The length for this particular person is around 62, and I'm cutting out 65. The joining for the joining at the shoulder will be needing 0.5, and then I added 2.5 extra just at the hem of the dress. We're going to be folding it or bending it in. So I've gone ahead to cut it out, and then this is me trying to arrange my fabric on the table. And then the next thing I will do is to show you the measurement that will be required for this particular dress. For this dress, you'll be needing from your center back to your desired sleeve length, as well as your bust circumference, your hip circumference, your waist circumference. So those are the basic measurements you'll be needing. And then as we go along, I will explain more to you. And this is, I'm just trying to arrange, because for the lace edge that will be at the center of the dress, one thing is that your lace edge is very important. For this particular one, both sides are equal. For some lace, you don't have the same edge, right? For those ones, to sew this particular style can be very tricky or difficult, because the lace edge has to be the same for you to be able to do this particular to sew this particular style. So after folding it into two, following the length of the dress, following the length of the fabric of the dress, you want to slash it open at that side, at the folded side, the part you see me cutting out. The reason is we're going to be marking out our measurement now, and the lace edge has to be at the center. So that's why I'm trying to slash that part out. So, and then this is me also trying to move the lace edge towards my side. And then by the time we're going to be done, this is how the middle part of the front pattern will be. So this is what I was trying to explain to you. The lace edge is very important. If they are not both equal, it's going to be hard to achieve this particular style. So there has to be, when constructing a style like this, ensure your lace edge are equal. Because some lace edge are not always equal. Yeah. And that is it. Just trying to, we'll still come back to this part, and then we'll go into start to impute our measurements. Yeah. So I've placed my fabric back the same way it was initially, and then we'll go ahead to do the next thing, which is to impute the measurement. So the first thing I want to do there is to try and measure out if I have the enough length that I need from the center back to the desired length, sleeve length. This is what I'm trying to show you here. That's one thing you want to make sure you have enough to cover for that, depending on how long you want it. For some it's always short, for some 3/4 length, for some getting to the rigs. So you would decide that. That's based on your preference or your client's preference. So this is me trying to measure what I did measure, and for the person that is going to be wearing this is 26. So I tried to measure it, and then to be sure, and then after measuring I went ahead to mark it down. And then while marking it down, you want to take away the few inches you'll be using to be replaced with the lace edge, because on that part too you need to join the lace edge to that part. So the next thing I went ahead to do is, can you see that I'm still trying to measure it all the way down from the center back up till the, what's it called now, to the desired sleeve length. And then what you see me mark here again is just from the shoulder to the waistline, from the shoulder to the hip line. And now we go into the proper measurement. And this is the half of the shoulder measurement. For this person is 8.5. I came down by 1 inch. Before you do that, you want to make sure that you leave at least 0.5 inches from the starting point here for the joining at the shoulder. Very important. Yeah, I did at first. I didn't do that, but I'm still going to do that. That is very important. You want to make sure you leave 0.5 inches at the starting point. That would be for the joining allowance. So I've gone ahead to do the shoulder slants, 1 inch at the point where I mark from my shoulder to shoulder, half of the shoulder to shoulder measurement, and then at the entire sleeve length I came down by 2 inches for the shoulder slant. I love doing that. And this is for the neckline now. I'm measuring 3.5 by 5 inches. Yeah, that's what I decided to use. 3.5 by 5 inches. And then we're still going to do something else here. After doing that, we're still going to mark again for the lace edge that will be adding to it. Yeah, but we'll get to that. So 3.5 by 5 inches, 3.5 for the width and 5 inches for the depth. And that I'm going to use my curve ruler to mark it out. It's so simple. I'm trying to take my time because of the beginners. If you have any questions, just ask me in the comment section. I'll try as much as possible to explain to you. So I've gone ahead to do that. That's the marking you see there. I don't really want the marking to show too much. And this is when I remembered, oh, the 0.5 that is meant to be from the starting point. So don't forget to add the 0.5, leave 0.5 before marking, before doing your marking at all. So I've gone ahead to add that, and I've adjusted the shoulder slants at the point where I mark half of the shoulder to shoulder measurement, that part. So I've adjusted it down by 0.5 a little bit so that I'll be able to have the sewing allowance. So the next thing I'll be doing now is I'll still come back to the neckline. I want to mark that is the bust line, which is the chest line. You want to determine that. So you can use your bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1.5, and I'm going to be marking that's the you imputing 1/4 of the bust measurement. After imputing that, I added 3 inches extra. Yeah, 1 for the sewing and 2 inches for the freeness. I want it for it to be free. Extra allowance. And on the waistline, you want to do the same thing. Impute 1/4 of the waist measurement, then add as much allowance you want to add. If you want it fitted, if you want it a little bit loose, you want to do that. So I've marked that is for the waistline. As can you see that? For the waistline, I'll still come back to the chest line or that part of the chest line, but I'll get to that again. So this is me trying to measure and letting you know that I added that much of allowance for freeness. And then from your shoulder to your hip line, you want to determine that on yourself. So, and that is the next thing I'm going to be doing, guys. That's the hip line part. I've already marked that out, the hip line. Impute 1/4 of this hip circumference plus your allowance, including your sewing allowance. I use 3 inches. You can use as much as you want. And that's the hip line. Whatever you have on the hip line, you want to take it down to the hem. At first, because this person is very slim, I wanted to make it a kind of an A shape on that part so that it's not just too straight on her. But I thought, okay, let me just follow in the style. It's going to still be okay for her, right? Yeah, I've sewn for her before a couple of times, and I know she's not the type that can just sew something that will go straight, so that it will just go straight on her. That's the more reason why I added the extra inches. So if you want to make it to have a kind of an A shape, you want to add extra inches at the tip of the hem of the dress. But I decided to use the same thing I have on the hip, transfer the same measurement at the hem. Can you see that? That's what I ended up doing. So you want to decide that on your own. Either way, it will still come out looking nice. So how much opening do I want for the sleeve? You know, that thing that looks like a bat, the bat sleeve, you have measured it all the way down to the waistline. I decided to use the waistline. You can go as far as the hip line. It's fine, either the waistline, depending on your preference or your client's preference. There are two styles that you see already in the picture. That is the picture before watching this video. It is to show you that you can either stop at the hip line or at the waistline, depending on your preference. So that's the way to go about it. And I went ahead to curve it on that part of where I marked the waist measurement, which is the waist, 1/4 of waist measurement plus the 3 inches. On that part, I decided to curve it that way. Or you can as well make it to go in form of a V shape at that part. But I decided to make it just straight on this part and cutting out the extras or whatever is left on that part. And this is me trying to cut out the part of the shoulder. So I've already, on this part, I've already left 0.5. I didn't really follow the line because I need to leave 0.5 sewing allowance. So you want to make sure you make allowance for that, for the sewing allowance. Sorry, for the sewing allowance at the shoulder. And I've gone ahead to do that. We're still coming back to the neckline. So this is for the back pattern now. For the back pattern, you also want to make sure you fold your fabric this way, depending on the length that you've taken for the front. So going by the front pattern, I will first spread out my fabric on it to see if I have enough on the folding of what I've folded to cover for it. And this is how I went about to do it. Fold your fabrics into two that way. Remember, we're still going to be adding this edge towards the sleeve, to the hem of the sleeve now. But for the center back, I decided to add leave 1 inch rather for the zip allowance. 1 inch for the zip allowance at the center back. That is where you see me mark first. 1 inch on that part. Then place the front pattern on it to be able to trace and cut it out on that part. So that is what I have done. Can you see that? It's so easy. Just place your front pattern on the back, on the folded fabric for the back, and then make sure you leave 1 inch at that side, the center back, for the zipper, except you don't want to add zip. And then go ahead and trace out the front, just that way. Go ahead and trace out the front. Initially I thought to just cut it behind the camera, but I said no. For beginners, people that are just watching, for beginners rather, I thought to just share this. So this is what I did. Can you see that? And another thing you need to consider is your lace edge, right? Because this particular style, we're using more of the lace edge, one at the center front and at the hem of the sleeve. So you want to look into that before starting to cut. Very important. And this is where I said I was coming back. So okay, I'm just going to trace also the neckline as well. Everything the same thing as the front. The only difference is for the center back that needs to have the zip allowance, and also the neckline. For the neckline as well, I'm using both because of the way the style is. We're going to be using the same weight and the depth. Can you see that? The same weight and the depth that we use for the front, that is exactly the same thing I will be using for the back. Remember, the neckline we have there is a round one with lace edge. So that's the way I'll go about to cut it. Can you see it, guys? Cut it out that way. And then this is me trying to, for the front pattern, I think I've taken out the back pattern. No, not yet. But for the front pattern, I want to just mark the part that I'll be replacing with the lace edge. I'll be taking that part out, depending on how wide you want the lace edge to be. If you want it to be very wide, you want to determine that. I took out 1 inch from the front pattern, and that's where you see me mark all the way around, to be replaced by 2 inches. Yeah, I'm going to replace it by 2 inches of the lace edge. So when we get to that, I'll show you. Yeah, I'm doing that for both front and back. Remember, this is a round neck, and then the lace edge has to be all the way round. So for both front and back, while the back is still together with the front pattern, you want to do that. And for this part, I'm trying to do the tightening at the back to avoid any folding. The fact that a dress is a free dress does not mean it shouldn't have fitting at the back. So on the waistline at the back, I went in by 0.5. That is only for the back pattern, please. If you want to do this part, you can decide to just take out the front before cutting it. So I went in by 0.5, then connected to the hip line and all the way to the neckline. That's the way I love to do it. Then once you have done that, you want to cut that 0.5 out. Then slash the remaining center back all the way from the hem to that part to the hip line. Yeah. Like I said, I did the back tightening with 0.5. So that's the way to go about to do that. And here, the next thing to do is to cut out the part of the lace edge that will be adding to the neckline. So firstly, you want to measure what you have around your neckline. You want to make sure you measure it and then add some allowances. Or if you can, add up to 3 or 4 inches extra. Yes. So this is the way I'll go about today. Remember, that is for the front. You want to measure what you have there, whatever you have there, almost 10 inches. Then try and add extra inches. Don't just cut out the 10 inches, because by the time you'll be joining, you are likely to discover that you have it's short and it will go around your neckline. So this is me trying to cut out the lace edge, and how much inches you're going to be cutting will be 2 inches. For one, because I took out 1 inch, I'm going to be replacing it with 2 inches. If you take out 1.5, replace it with 2.5. The reason being that you're going to be joining it back with 0.5. We're joining this particular lace edge to the body with 0.5. And remember, on the body of the neckline as well, if you are joining it, it means you are taking out your joining allowance, which is 0.5. So that is the reason why I'm replacing it with 2 inches, meaning I'm adding 1 inch extra for the sewing allowance of you taking out from the body, the neckline now, the body of the neck, the body of the dress, which is the neckline part. You're taking 0.5 that you're going to be sewing in, as well as you're joining this one, the lace edge, to the body with 0.5. So you want to add it back. So I'm just cutting out 2 inches. Like I said, I'm going to repeat myself. If you have cut out 1.5 or 2 inches out of the neckline, replace with it that inches and an extra 1 inch. Very important. So that is it, guys. I've gone ahead to cut out the lace edge I'll be using for both front and the back. This style is very simple. And if you want to learn how to cut the v-neck part of it, I have the video already on my channel. How to cut a dress with a v-neck. I have it on my channel. You can just watch it there. And this is that way you're going to be joining it right side facing right side. You will join it to the fabric. So we'll take to the sewing machine and I'll show you how I went about to join the neckline. It's so simple, guys. So this is me trying to, okay, the first thing we'll do here, just a tip on how to sew it, is placing both the center front. Now you want to place the lace edge. I've done it already before discovering that the video it wasn't showing this part, so I thought to show you again. One way you can join the center front is to make one of the lace edge to lap a little bit on the other and stitch straight, or you just stitch it across the way you see the way my finger was initially. You want to stitch it across like a slant one, a bend. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, or you stitch it the same way I did here by just making sure each of the one of the lace edge overlap on each other. So that's the way I went about to do this. I make sure one side overlap by 0.5 or a little bit on each other, or better still, you do it just so you do the sewing across. So it's so simple. And this is for the neckline, joining of the lace edge to the neckline, you want to go ahead and join it this way, the same way you would join your cotton bias or whatever thing you're using to turn the neckline. Go ahead and join it on 0.5, and that's what you see me do here. So after joining it, you're going to be holding darts on that part. We're going to be holding little darts to make it sit and relax, because just sewing it like this will not make it to relax, and it will even have any fitting. So the tips to sewing a relaxed neckline with lace edge is to hold in few inches of darts. So before doing that, I love to do this, but before you do this, you want to make sure you overlock, and then I love to top stitch just to make it to relax. I push in the part of the one I used to join in and then stitch on it. I love top stitching a lot. So this is where we'll be holding the darts. Just fold your fabric at the lace edge a tiny bit. I did use 0.5 and I sew it like you're taking a dart. Can you see that? Just like you're holding a dart. Look at what I'm going to do again. I held it 0.5 and then sew it right down to the part where we join the lace edge to the body. One side of it is relaxing now, but this side is not relaxing properly. So I'll go ahead and hold it the same way. Can you see that? Hold it that way and stitch. You can use 0.5, you can use 0.25. Keep doing it, holding it until you get a perfect and a relaxed neckline. But make sure it does aligns. Can you see that? Make sure it does aligns. The folding, my folding is on that part where we have the shape, scallop shape, where it went in. So I decided to hold it on that part. Can you see that this part still need holding? And this is the way I went about to do it. Just hold it. My camera lady did not do that, hold like camera that part very well. Hold it that way. And then can you see that? Just stitch. I didn't use the part of this as scallop or scallop that is I used that part that went in, and then fold it on that part and hold it down. So this is how the front is looking before we go ahead and join in. Go ahead and give it a good press. This is all you need to do. Go ahead and give it a good press, and this is how the so guys, the next thing will be for us to join the shoulders together. Make sure you give it a good press before doing that. Yeah, I haven't ironed it at this stage. And then you go ahead and join the shoulders, making sure the right side and the right side of the front and the back are facing each other. And then yeah, so I'll go ahead now and join it together. It's very good to iron. It's a very important to always iron every step of the way. And then you can see the way I've placed it here, right side facing the right side of both pattern, front and back. And then I'll go on to stitch on 0.5 my sewing allowance, and thereafter I'll be adding a lace edge to the edge of the sleeve part. And for this video, I actually did a full video. I didn't know, I think by mistake I must have deleted that part of where I was cutting out the lace edge. Just make sure you measure what you have there, and remember the way the pattern is there is on fold. I would say it's on fold because you after joining you need to open it, the sleeve part out, and measure the length of the lace edge you want to add. And when adding or cutting out, ensure to add your sewing allowance, please. The same thing we did for the neckline part, the same way you want to go ahead and cut out the lace edge, and then join it to the sleeve side after you might have joined the shoulders. And the next thing will be for you to join from the sleeve all the way to the hem of the dress. And as for me, I left about 13 inches down for the slits and on both sides for freeness purpose, so as to make it more easy to move around. And this is the way the dress is looking, the neckline and everything is almost ready. The last thing I'll be doing is just to measure from the shoulder to the chest line, and I'll just run a straight stitch. Okay, before then you want to, like I said, measure up to the chest line, and then on the chest line you want to also measure from your shoulder to where your chest line will be, and impute 1/4 of the bust measurement with a little bit, maybe 1 inch, depending on you, if you want it fitted, or 1 or 2 inches allowance. Then stitch from there to the place where your and the cuff we made for the sleeve, you know, I stopped my own on the waistline. If you want make it to go all the way to the hip line, fine, just want a stitch from there. The essence of rerunning a stitch, can you see the tape pro? I did measure the 1/4 of the bust measurement with any allowance you want to add, and want a stitch up to where the cuff or the where this the batwing or the sleeve ends. The reason is, by the time the person is raising their hands up, the whole of the armor up to the bust will not be showing or exposed. So you want to do it that way. And there we have it, guys. So I will see you in my next video. Do well to subscribe, like, comment, and share me out. And then check on my page for the v-neck. How to cut the v-neck is right on my page. Thank you. Bye. See you in another video.